In this video and the next, we will explore the two module systems used in Node.js. A module refers to code that is written not in one place, but divided according to function and purpose. By doing so, you can reuse one piece of code in multiple places, and it makes understanding, modifying, and managing the code easier. The module methods commonly used in Node.js are CommonJS and ES modules. When Node.js was first created, CommonJS was originally used as the basic module system. However, after ECMAScript officially standardized ES modules, the use of ES modules in Node.js is increasing, and it is expected to become the standard system in the future. In this video, we will first learn about CommonJS. In the next video, we will look into ES module and compare them. Then, we will move on to the practical session. Create two JavaScript documents like this in the project folder. One is the math.js file to be used as a module. The other is the app.js file that imports and runs other modules. Let's first write the module code. Here, a constant called pi is created and a value is assigned. I'll make it so this value can be used elsewhere. The code below exports this as a module for external use. In CommonJS, we export the module outwards like this, using the module object provided by default. In VS Code, it shows a marker pointing out something at the bottom left of the code. If you hover over it, you see this recommendation to change it to the ES module method. You can see that the ES module has already settled as a more recommended method nowadays. Since the topic of this lesson is CommonJS, we will proceed as it is. Now let's write the code in AppScript as shown on the right. We're going to use the module exported from math. In CommonJS, you pull in external modules using the require function like this. As an argument, there's a relative path to the target script in string form. Below that, I'll write the code to print this out to the console. I've already shown you that by entering the file name of a particular script together with the node command in the terminal, the corresponding code runs. You can omit the extension like this. Press enter and you can see that the value is properly printed out as shown below. Successful export and import of module like this. This time, let's implement exporting a function as a module. In this way, after creating a function that add two given parameters, we are going to export it in the same way. In the app, I will modify the code to call and use this as a function. If you run it, you can see it works without any issues. The name of the exported value and the name of the imported value do not have to match. Even if you change such a value of the constant that loads the module in the app, it will work without issues as long as it is used consistently within the document. This time, let's try to encapsulate and export several values as one object. Like this, I'm going to export three values. In addition to the already written constant pi and add function, I wrote a class named mathOps. That is to export these three with such code. This is called shorthand property names, and as a result of simplifying the code within speech bubble. Those who are not familiar with this syntax, you can understand it easily by pausing the screen for a while and taking a look. The app has been written as shown on the right. An object fetched from the math file has been stored in an object called math like this. As shown below, you can access the constants, functions, classes, etc. contained inside the object via its key. Please pause the video for a moment and look at the code. As you can see, the values of x and y calculated using these are printed correctly. This time, let's use an object's destructuring assignment on the importing side as well. Let's modify the first line as follows. Again, you can understand this as shortening the code of the speech balloon. Now, since the values exported from math are being stored as constants of the same name, you can use those values directly without the need for an object to put them in. A brief look at the code will help you understand this easily.
But what do we do if the same name is exported from another module?
Yes, let's understand with the next example. I will write an additional document called vector like this. I also modified the code of math. Please take a look at the codes for a while. Math has functions that operate two numbers, and vector has functions that operate two vectors composed of x and y. Both have a function named add. They are functions that add two numbers and two vectors, respectively, and both are exported in the name of add. Now let's call them in the app. When you call the same named elements separately, you can write it with a colon like this. I brought the add of math as addMath and the add of vector as addVector. I will write the code to use them and output the result of adding two numbers and two vectors respectively. Now if you run it, you can see that the code works without any problem. Next, let's look at another way to export modules. As we have already seen, this code assigns the values to be exported to exports in the module object as an object. As you can see, it's exporting 4 functions bundled together. You can implement the same functionality with the following code. Please take a moment to look at the code. It's a way of adding items to an object called exports with names you want. If you run it, you can see that it works normally. The external exports at the bottom points back to module objects exports at the top. In other words, these two point to the same memory address. So if you compare the two with this identity operator, true is returned. So you can use either the above method or the below method. One thing to note is that these two methods should not be used together. The first two functions export using the above method, and the last two functions use the below method for exporting. You should not both modify the exports object of the module and add items to the exports object like this. If you compare the two in this state, you can see that false is returned. This is because the memory address it points to changes the moment a new value is assigned to the exports of the module. Now the exports inside the module object and the exports outside become unrelated. Therefore, if you run this code now, you can see that an error occurs in the multiplication operation like this. It is because the outside exports has been disconnected from the exports inside the module and has not been exported. When we write the code like this, we run into the same problem. Please take a moment to look at the code. The two functions above add entries to the exports object without a problem. But if you assign a new value to this object as shown below, it also breaks the link with the exports object within the module object. So you can see once again, the two objects are pointing different places. And thus, you can see the same error occurs. So remember this when you're working with CommonJS. Finally, let's take a look at another example that shows the characteristics of CommonJS. I'm going to create 3 more documents like this. Please pause the video and take a look at the codes. This is a counter module that has a function that increments the count from 0 and returns that value. The two modules on the right both import the counter module, print the current count, increase the count, and print that value again. Lastly, in the app, these two modules are imported. Since these modules do not export any values, they are imported for the sole purpose of running their code. As I mentioned earlier, the count starts from 0. Running the app, you'll see the file, a module running first, so the count goes from 0 to 1 as shown below. By the time the code in file B runs, you'll see that count has already increased to 1. This happens because CommonJS caches the modules once they are imported. The counter modules brought in by file A and file B share the same instance, so this is the situation you can observe. CommonJS improves performance by caching modules in this way. However, forgetting this point can cause unexpected problems in programming. You have to remember this too. So, we've discussed about CommonJS in this video. In the next video, we're going to discuss another type, ES modules.